I try not to buy any facial serums. I make all that stuff on my own. Those things are so readily available when you grow them. Infusing them in oil is just a very easy thing to do. So, you just pick a carrier oil that's suited for your skin. The sunflower, the grapeseed, those, and the sweet almond, those are like my top three. You have a really nice, very non-toxic, clean product to use. Rosemary is one of the easiest ones to do, and one of the ones that it's pretty versatile. Like you can use it in your hair and on your skin. It's a simple. Infusing them, I cook with them, and tea definitely is a big one.
Welcome to the Beet podcast. I am your host today, Jacques, the Garden Hermit, and today we have a very special guest on, Ana Talukder. She is all about the herbs. We've actually had her on a few times on the main channel, helping us understand how to grow herbs, how to preserve them, how to use them. So it's a pleasure to have you on today. We've met in person. It was really great chatting with you, so I'm super excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And I would actually love if you could introduce yourself a little bit, like where you're at, like rough region, like your growing zone, what kind of gardener you are, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm in the Seattle area. I am in zone 8B. So our gardening season is somewhat short, but we garden almost completely organically. We create our own compost. I start probably about 80% of what we grow from seed. And I do a mix of, propagating and seed starting every season. And then I always try to add something new every season too.
I love starting my stuff from seed, and it's just like way more rewarding to kind of be able to nurse it from the very beginning. And I know that for you, like you love growing herbs. I think like if I had to choose one, I love herbs in the garden, but tomatoes are kind of like my main thing that I really love to grow every year. So I'd actually love to hear like some of your favorite herbs. Maybe if you have any like unique secret herbs that maybe a lot of people haven't heard of that you love and want people to know about.
Oh man, that's a tough question.
I know.
One that I would love to be able to grow, but that just does not work in this region is butterfly pea flower. I just feel like that is and it's, I don't even know if it qualifies as an herb, but I definitely use it in that capacity. But that's just an amazing, an herb that you can use for a lot of different types of things, from cooking to making cocktails. But it's a cool indigo flower that if you add citrus to it turns pink. And I know a lot of gin companies have now incorporated it. So it's kind of cool.
That's right.
But as far as herbs, I'm so basic as far as what I really love. Like I love oregano and rosemary. Rosemary is like a top of my list. Lemon balm. Those are probably my top three. Basil, of course, but that's just predominantly for cooking. But those are like oregano. Rosemary. Those are my top two.
If I had to choose my personal favorite, I think it would be thyme. I personally, I know. I was like, I know that you're all about the thyme too.
Yeah.
But there's like so many cool ones too that I've like recently been like delving into a little bit. Like even just on the basic level, like English and French and like German thyme, like all three of them have like a unique smell. And I definitely had a favorite. I can't remember which one it is now, but from the standard ones. But like my favorite one is like lemon thyme, because that thing on potatoes, especially like in the kitchen, is like perfection. So
it's awesome in chicken.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, the lemon thyme and chicken is amazing. And this year I ran into ginger thyme, which I've never seen before.
Whoa,
and I was like,
wild.
That's really cool. And then there's lavender thyme too, which is, it's even like, it's super hard to even explain what that smells or tastes like. It is truly a combination of the two. But thyme is, I should have had that on the list. You're right. That's amazing. It's amazing. Everybody loves it.
Yeah, the one that I'm not so sure about is I've seen orange thyme, and like that one, like the smell is like a little bit too weird for me. I don't know why. It's just not working for me.
That's understandable.
But one of the interesting things, like comparing our zones, so I'm like in zone 10B, San Diego. Not that zones really are like the end all be all, because I'm also very dry, Mediterranean. So Mediterranean herbs like the rosemary, the thyme, the oreganos, they tend to do really well for me. I'm curious if there's like anything that, if it's like more of just a challenge to grow herbs in Seattle in some case, or if there's like some particular ones that like seem to like love it there for whatever reason.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because like, truly these herbs I love are completely Mediterranean, but they do
Yeah.
amazingly well here. Like oregano
Okay.
and thyme are annuals, or I'm sorry, perennials.
Oh,
I
very
will
nice.
grow one plant and they will be here forever. So, you know, for I don't know why. I can't even explain because like, if you really think about it, it needs like super dry roots. We do take time we do take time to put like rocks at the bottom of the roots before we plant things like our lavender,
Oh,
our oregano. Like
okay.
we do put rocks down there for extra drainage. We usually have it in a little bit more of an elevated space than everything else, but
Oh,
it's they've been so resilient because I feel like every winter we get more and more snow and ice and longer days of those low temps, and the oregano and thyme have just been they've been amazing. Like they've been totally killing it. It's like they come back stronger every year. And when you have like that self-rooting system with the oregano and the thyme, because
yeah,
it
that's true.
spreads really really easily, they actually smell better. The leaves start getting bigger, they smell stronger,
Huh.
they last longer, they preserve better. So it's really interesting. You get a lot of bang
That
for your
is
buck.
really interesting.
You
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I've been putting, now that you mention it, I've actually had some times that have just died in the ground. And I think I am putting them in low spots because they'll be fine. And like, it's funny when I say that our rainy season, we get like 10 inches of rain, which maybe you might get in like a day or two.
Haha.
But even that is enough that like some of my time, because we have clay soil here, or like
Uh,
predominantly clay, I'd say. And during that colder period in the winter, if it gets like enough rain, like my time's not going to be looking the best. But I am going to think about like adding more drainage, planting them maybe in a higher area, because that is really interesting. I didn't really think to add rocks, but traditionally, like these Mediterranean herbs will grow on like these rocky cliff sides, like in the Mediterranean, where there isn't that much soil, and it's like limestone, like not
yeah.
the
Oh,
most like
100%.
thriving soil base.
Yeah, and then like the other thing that's been really helping is really ignoring them. Like we don't add extra compost, we don't fertilize them, we don't do anything, and the less maintenance and whatever. I mean, I do have to be better about harvesting harder. I think I'm like kind of precious about it sometimes, where I'm like just taking little bits and pieces and not really hacking at it. But before the winter, especially this time of year, is a great time just to get all of those woody bits off, but be careful not to root it way back. But no compost. I mean, the first couple of years that I had them in raised beds. Like the birdie beds are awesome for especially this area because the metal keeps all that heat in, and even when it's cold outside, that soil's staying nice and warm because of the metal. But yeah, I need to be better about pruning it for sure, and then just not paying any mind to it at all. Like keep that dirt crappy.
Yeah, actually, that'd be fun to kind of talk about a little bit. Is like on a lot of these herb care, I think people struggle with a lot of these because it's almost like the same problem that people have when they grow like succulents, like cacti, and they're like, I need to water this like every day. It needs this. It looks sad. Let me give it more of that. And truly, these are, like you mentioned, they are like herbs of neglect. And oftentimes, just leaving them, if you forgot about it, chances are it's probably happy that you did so. And it's now doing really well. Like my rosemary's gigantic, and it's
Oh,
nowhere where I water like regularly, and it's just doing its own thing. And otherwise, people will struggle and kill it by just overwatering. So
oh
I
yeah.
think that is like a really good point to draw out. The other one is speaking of like growing certain herbs that are traditionally annuals, or at least listed as annuals, but like as perennials. Like it, same with me. Like I mean, I guess maybe more obviously, but the oregano, the thyme, the rosemary, like that will fully become a perennial and just live for many years. And it is interesting to note that when they do contact the soil, in particular, I'm thinking thyme and oregano, they will root, and oftentimes I will then cut that out and replant that, and
Oh
that
yeah.
it does have more vigor.
Yeah.
Like it's almost if you started a new plant from seed. It just like has less baggage in it, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
it's
totally
cool that
agree.
that works for you as well.
Yeah, I'm all about the free plants, especially when it's herbs, because things with like oregano and thyme are those kinds that you can stick into little pockets all around your yard. You don't have to have a designated herb bed or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
You
true.
just want it to take up some space, and it's such a tactile plant too, especially thyme. Like you walk by thyme, and it puts that scent out all around you. So yeah, big fan.
Absolutely. I wanted to call out, now that you mentioned that, my favorite herb in terms of aromas, when I walk by them, I have two. And every time somebody comes to my garden, I force them to smell it. And I am like, what do you think? Like, isn't that amazing? So the two that I normally make them do is my holy basil, tulsi.
Oh, why didn't I have that on my
Incredible.
list? Oh my God.
I,
Wait, come on.
we're gonna get into all these. But that one, I'm just like, I want to water that bed so much because as soon as the water hits it, it's just like
Oh
a
yeah.
cloud of like this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like sweet, aromatic.
Well, I tried to
It's not really
describe
like
it
basil.
in one of the videos that I did for Epic, and I described it as kind of like a fruit bubble, like a fruit bubble gum, like a fruit gum. And
Yeah,
I got some heat for that because people are like, "What kind of gum is she chewing?" But like honestly, that's what
there
it
is
is.
something there. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
thank you.
That's like almost like an undertone on the smell because it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like sweet and fruity.
yeah.
I like it's almost like somebody mixed a little juicy fruit into something like that.
Mhm.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I force people to smell is my lemon verbena, and
Yeah, you're hitting all the
that
ones.
one I was gonna tell you because when I went to Seattle, I went to the flower garden show, and I did this like live demo, and somebody was making different drinks using like different
Yeah.
herbs to flavor them, and she had the lemon verbena, and I was talking to her about it, and she was so sad because I was like, mine's like a tree, and it just like is
Oh,
huge, like
stop.
it's like
Yes. Oh,
6 feet tall,
yeah. You
and it's
lucky guy.
almost like a nuisance. And she says that you guys have to grow as an annual.
We do.
So
And it's sad too. Like I plant lemon verbena out every single year. The plant does not get any bigger than like this big. And I'm like just like it's sad. Like I'm just like it's just so precious. I'm just gonna put it in here and try to keep it all right. Yeah, no, a tree. Oh, that's just rude.
well, hey,
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
it's interesting to like think of like the differences and like what we could pull off. I wonder if there is like something that just thrives for you that I struggle more maybe more with. I'm trying to think of like an herb that maybe is more on the wetter side of things, and
What
I
would
don't
that
know.
be?
I don't
Lemon
know.
balm
I
maybe?
know. Yeah,
Mint?
I guess
No,
lemon balm. It's
you can grow
basically
mint. You can grow mint, right?
yeah.
Like that's not an issue.
I mean, but mine looks a little bit sad compared to some others I've seen. And the
Okay.
lemon balm that I saw in Maine was like, wow, like this
Oh
guy's
yeah,
living its
our
best
lemon
life.
balm
This
is
guy,
insane. That's like a giant bush, and you have to. I
yeah.
mean, that splits so easily. Like when you have to cut it back or whatever, that's a great one to put everywhere. Also smells amazing. What could you not grow? I mean, what's your lavender situation? Because we grow some pretty great lavender considering how wet it is.
I feel like my lavender situation is embarrassing. It should
I'm
it
shocked,
should be better.
actually.
It
Oh,
should
it should
do
be
really
okay.
well here. And I think it's the classic thing that we mentioned at the beginning is that I'm trying to give it too much love. And I'm putting it in
Oh,
places where it gets too much attention. And I need to like put it somewhere and forget about it
okay. But
because
does it look
it
good
never
somewhere else?
thrives.
Like in other places in San Diego, are there a lot of lavender plants around that are actually doing
Oh yeah,
okay?
I've seen some
Oh,
lavender, and I'm
okay.
like, okay, I'm the problem. It's not it's not the plant. It's just me. There's always those things where
Oh yeah.
I just never give it its full chance. Honestly,
I can't
that
grow
one
potatoes.
and
I can't grow
oh
potatoes. Why? I mean
okay
like other people can. I just personally
yeah
cannot put a seed potato in the ground and have it do anything. So that's me.
yeah. Same with me for green onions. So in the herb
No.
world, I don't know why green onions hate me so much, but they do.
Huh,
So
that's crazy.
uh, uh, yeah, I've tried it so many times too, and I feel so like dumb every time. I'm like, come on, like
Oh,
what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Like
it's just a
it's
green
gotta just
onion.
grow.
That is serious.
Yeah,
What's going
I know. I'm like, how disrespectful. Like, I could buy like a whole bunch of these for like 25 cents at the grocery store or something like that. Can't
Yeah,
even grow
yeah.
one.
Then you're just depressed
But
trying to grow
I
food.
will crack it. I will crack it. The green
Good.
onion and the
I
lavender.
believe in
Next year,
you.
you'll see a whole video on it. But actually, thinking of these kind of plants, especially since you do have the season where, you are growing things that, like my lemon verbena, for example. What do you do? Like, how do you save that for year after year? I'm sure it might be like a little bit more specific to different things, maybe, but I'm not that well versed on it. I've like hung up some stuff to dry. Sometimes it gets moldy and I throw it away. So I'd
Whoa.
love to have, yeah, I know. because I have a little bit of a humidity situation here in San Diego. I'll admit
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Because I'm semi-coastal, so I'd love
Gotcha.
to hear some like I know there's like a big spectrum, and I'd be happy to cover as much of it as we can. So
Okay.
maybe we could
No,
start
I mean,
with
I should
like,
I should show you this little drying rack I have here in the apothecary. Let me see if you can see it. You see that guy right
oh
there?
wow, yeah I do. That's the vibe
Okay,
right there.
so it's kind of human in this shed because this is a shed. But I would just turn on a fan when it feels like, we obviously have humidity. So I just keep this fan running on the constant when they're first drying, like that first week, just kind of keep the air moving, keep the doors open and the windows open.
Yeah, totally.
But I use just these big flat hanging screens. Like they're these giant circles. It's probably, I don't know, at least 2 feet in diameter, and they just come
Okay,
stacked that you can hang from the ceiling. And I take my
I've seen
like
those. Yeah.
feverfew, any of those plants that you just want the little flower head. Uh, Things like echinacea that I dry a lot of, or lavender. Those are the ones that you can
Interesting.
cut and then make sure you kind of stagger hang them and then hang them with twine and
Right.
then stick them in this area. But you don't want to bunch them up like with so many of them because, yeah, that's going to cause mold. You need a lot of air circulation around the whole thing if you can manage to do it. But the screens make it easy. It just takes up so much space, like to do that. So, I'm a big fan of calendula. Oh, that's another one that I didn't even mention because I feel like it's kind of a flower, but not like really a herb, but kind of an herb. But
It
calendula
is
is like one
interesting to
of
think
my
about that.
favorites. But yeah, so you just pull the heads off of them and then just put them on the screen and make sure the air circulation is 100% the biggest thing. I totally avoid the dehydrator. I think
Oh,
that
okay.
for my herbs, like I really
Is this a
do.
hot take? Just
Yeah,
kidding.
I just find it like I feel like it's just drying out all of like the good stuff that's in there. And if I need
I
something
see.
like fast and like really quick, that's different. I will do it. But I think that just keeping everything out of the sunlight and taking the time to let it air dry keeps it. I mean, you'll notice like when you put something in a dehydrator versus air drying
Hmm.
it, the color changes. You go from like that green won't stick in
I see.
there, the color of the flower won't maintain, and it'll become like more brown. I'm sure there's more sophisticated dehydrators than maybe the one that I have, but I just feel like any one that I have used has kind of yielded the same result. So some things I don't really care about. Like if I'm making a bunch, like oregano is so prolific, and at some point
Right.
I run out of space that I'm gonna have to dehydrate it. I just bottle it separately than my other ones, and you can really see a difference, but taste wise it's not that much difference. So
Oh, okay.
it's just aesthetics for some of those
That's
things
good.
like oregano. But with the calendula, like no, I mean any of those other things that, especially if I'm going to make an infused oil out of it or any kind of skincare product, I really want it to be a slow process.
Totally. And actually, from like step one, when do you actually harvest these things? Like, is
It's
there a right
ongoing.
time of day?
No way. Oh, the right time of day? Yeah. So I
Yeah, sorry,
definitely,
in that regard.
definitely do it in the morning, like right after the dew dries naturally. So they're not wet from the dew of the morning. I try to avoid any time after it rains. I just want them to be as dry as possible. But all of the oils are the most volatile
Right.
right in the morning. So do your harvest in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, that's generally what I've recommended as well. And I think it does go like probably to that same regard when you're talking about like being worried about the dehydrator is that it's the essential oils that we're really trying to preserve here for the most part, if I understand you correctly, right? Because that is like where the aroma and a lot of the scent and a lot of like whatever compounds might be present in that, that's like what we're actually trying to save to preserve as like compared to like the fresh harvest, that's really what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Is like the
Yeah.
essential oil preservation.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So harvest in the morning. If you have like if you have things like flower heads, like calendulas or echinaceas, that is generally best to always separate out the heads from like the stems, right? Just for ease of drying.
I just think it's
Or do you
easier,
also tie them?
well, I mean, honestly, you could do it however you want as long as
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
getting its flow. But I don't use the whole calendula plant. I'm just using the flower head. So I
Okay.
will turn them even upside down so that the petals stay flat. because I don't know. I think for me, it's just more of like a surface area thing when I'm doing an infusion. So you just want as much as you can because I'm not mashing them up in there. You know, I'm not
Got it.
muddling them. I'm like letting the oil kind of pull everything out of those flowers. So the more surface area that it has, the better. So I always dry my flower heads like flat so that happens.
Okay, cool. And like in terms of those dryers, I have seen them. I think like they're even called like herb drying, like hanging
Yeah,
herb
I think
drying
you are.
something, something like that. And I've tried one in the past. They did dry. I think I overpiled though. So that's another important thing that you mentioned is that
Single
it's
layer.
always best
Single
single
layer.
layer. Airflow, surface area. Those are the keys here for good
Yeah.
preservation on the herbs.
Yes.
And then in terms of the sun, you mentioned never in the sun. I'm guessing like that's probably a combination of like the heat and the UV, but like I'm guessing it
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
kind of
just so you
knocks
know,
out a
you've
lot of
already
that.
cut it off from its life source, basically. So now you're just zapping it of all of its nutrients too. Yeah, no, just don't do it in the direct sun.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's probably also why we want to harvest in the morning, for example, is
Yeah.
that like it will be, and you could smell it too. Like if you walk by those herbs in like direct sun, like they tend to like, especially immediately when they get hit by it, you could smell like kind of that essential oil burn off. So
Yeah.
that totally makes sense as well. The one thing I'd be interested to hear your take on is I've seen this method for preserving herbs where you take it and you put it straight up in the microwave. And apparently, I don't know if you've ever tried this, based on your reaction, maybe not, uh, is that my
Microwave.
understanding of it is that yeah, because what'll happen is it'll hit like the water molecules in the herbs, and I believe it fully like draws the water off, and the color stays, and the essential oils stay. And I've tried it like once, and it was weirdly dry. Like it was super weird. I was like, I don't remember if it was like Kenji Lopez who said it or if it was like an America's Test Kitchen kind of thing, but
I would definitely have to
it,
try
it was
that.
pretty interesting. It was pretty
I
interesting.
can't believe that. Like it was dry, like crispy, and you could still smell
Yeah,
like,
it was very weird. I was like, I don't see how this works. And I was like, I'll try it. I'll trust the process. And it totally did. I don't know if it would work on
okay.
every herb.
Uh,
I don't remember which one I tried it on, but just another thing, like maybe try it
yep.
out.
I 100% will.
Yeah, because I believe what's happening with this isn't a microwave podcast, but I think the microwave is just hitting the water molecules, exciting them, and then that's what's causing the heat up. So it
How
should
does
be
it
just
not
driven off in that
heat
case.
though? Okay. All right. I'm gonna
That's where it
go.
gets into the physics that I'm not qualified to touch on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
another option for somebody to, if you want to look into that. And otherwise, I love like the hanging. So like tying up a collection of stems, like that would probably work really well
And stagger them. Like
for
stagger
stagger. Okay,
your
so
like
they're not
the
all like next to each other, but like
right.
a little bit
Yes.
offset from each
Yes.
stem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that working well for like oreganos and
Right.
probably thymes and things like that.
Sage.
Say, oh yeah,
Yeah, like your tarragons, your marjorams, your
oh I love
time,
marjoram. I feel like
time
that's a
for
sleeper.
me. Oh yeah. Time for me is like I will just cut that guy down and just put it on the screen because tying up time is tedious. So I'm just not gonna do it.
That's true. There's a lot of small branches sometimes.
So many.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I will call that out since you mentioned it. Marjoram, guys, if you haven't tried it,
Ooh,
it's really, really, really good stuff. It's kind of like oregano and thyme, and maybe throw in like a little basil party in there,
yeah.
like on the subtle
Yeah.
edge. And it's very multi-purpose, and it loves San Diego. I have
Oh,
a marjoram plant behind me in the garden that's like a brick now because it's grown for so
let me
long, and I
see.
just like cut it. It just keeps
Oh
regrowing.
yeah, that's another one
I need to
where
probably divide it.
we're on the struggle bus with the marjoram. Like we don't have like that's not
Yeah.
no.
Dividing herbs is something that I need to practice. And you mentioned a little earlier, but like, how do you like go about like let's say you have a big old clump of an herb, something like a marjoram or a thyme. Like, how would you go about like splitting that up?
Well, I
Do you
don't
have a
like
move?
marjorams like too excited, like, just too tiny. I wish it was a big brick that I could just cut off.
Okay.
But things like the lemon balm, I mean,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
even say lemon balm, lavender, oregano, thyme, sage. Sage is an annual here. I wish it wasn't. But any of the other ones, I mean, they're so forgiving that as long as you get a nice clean slice of them, you can just transfer them wherever. And I mean, honestly, I've been kind of like, I mean, you can go in there like an animal with oregano and thyme and just like rip it apart. And as long as you have some semblance of a root, you can throw it into the ground and it's going to take. But I love those like really forgiving plants because one, they're prolific. So even if you mess up, it's not that big of a deal. But two, they take it any time of the year too. You could do it in the middle of winter and it'd probably be just fine. They're just resilient plants. So herbs are
Yeah.
awesome like that.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think a lot of people, I always try to let people know, hey, like I know you love this plant and that's great. And you want to give it its best life, but it's fine. Like you could take a shovel, slam it right down the middle, tear it in half, and put one chunk somewhere else, leave that chunk there, or even put that one somewhere else, and it'll do
Yeah.
just fine. I did
Yes.
that recently with my lemongrass. I just like absolutely
Ugh,
massacred
you can
it. I
grow
think I just,
lemongrass? You're just bragging now.
I'm not even trying, I swear. But that one, like, I pulled that thing out of a pot and I just like took a saw and cut off like all the roots.
Wow.
And I just like ripped it apart, shoved it back in another pot, and it was fine. And
Oh,
it's a great
wow.
way to save money too, because a lot of herbs can be expensive. And I have started some from seed. I
Ooh.
would probably not recommend that to people, just because it takes a very long time.
Cool.
I don't know if you've grown like the thymes from seed. I mean, sure you have,
No.
but
You know,
I
I've
don't know.
not ever done
It's
time from seed, but you know what I did do, which I
yeah.
was actually shocked. So Botanical Interest has some lavender seeds, and I've
Oh yeah.
never grown lavender seeds. I think it came in like a pack that I had gotten, and
Mm.
I grew like four lavender plants, and they're like big guys now. Like they're like probably this big that I grew from
Oh,
seed.
okay.
And I can't
Nice.
believe that they actually happened. And the crazy part about it is like, you know how we seek out lavender that's like the most fragrant, right? Like, there's the Grosso.
Yes.
I think there's a couple of them that I'm like always like, this is the kind that I need to have. Those lavender plants that I started from seed smell like like they haven't even flowered, but the leaves smell so strong that I've just been drying those leaves now, which
Oh,
I
that's cool.
always wait for like the actual lavender flower to grow. But the leaves were so strong that we did like a whole series of like sun teas with just those leaves that were dried out from those plants that I started from seed. I was floored because I've never tried to do lavender from seed. Propagating lavender is so
Wow.
easy that doing it from seed never occurred to me. But I'm like, let's just give it a whirl. We might have like a bunch of indoor lavender plants just to hang
Wow.
out. But yeah, no, they did
There.
surprisingly well.
And is lavender, is it like propagation? It's just like rosemary, right? Like you take a cutting, you can put it in like some
Yeah.
soil. Is that
Yep.
basically it?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
You can even do it in like water. You can cut a stemmed off and then
Oh,
put it
okay.
in water and you'll root. Yep.
I do like water rooting. I
Yeah.
feel
So
like a
much
little bit more
easier.
forgiving.
Well, plus you
Yeah,
can see it
totally.
happen and you just feel like, oh, look,
Yeah.
I've
You're
done
like, oh,
something.
there's roots, so I know I could put it somewhere now.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
One of the other ones, oh man, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. But the propagation of the herbs to me is really fun because, like we mentioned, like growing stuff from seed, like thyme, it can work, but you better not overwater it at the beginning or else you're going to be very sad. You waited like 2 months for it to be this tall, like 2 inches, and then it just dies. So stuff like that, I think going to like a friend's house who has herbs, like I'm sure anyone would be happy to give somebody like a cutting. Like I've done the same with my thyme. Like somebody will comment that they like it, and I just like, oh here, and I like rip off a branch that's rooted, because a lot of it will root on its own. I'm like, just take this. Now you can plant this in your garden.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing for everyone to do at home if they want to expand their herbal garden, if they want to try new things. It's way easier than starting from seed, but it is a fun challenge to try, and I think everyone should try it just for the fun of it at
Yeah.
least.
I mean, I think it's awesome just to be able to like have them to like I'm like we moved into this house about 8 years ago, and we put in all the flower beds, we did all of these things, but there's still like holes in places. I mean, I think that as gardeners we get a little bit like this plant's cool, I'm gonna find a spot for it kind of thing. But when you have herbs, you can just take those cuttings and stick it in any like spot that's sunny enough
Yeah.
to grow them. And it is kind of like a, I don't know, it's just like an unexpected coolness to have in the midst of like maybe your flowers or like whatever, to have like a patch of thyme or oregano growing. And the bees love it because that's the ones that you will probably just let go into flower, and the bees go
Hmm.
crazy for it. And I mean, I don't know, I think it's very cool to have that ability to be able to just simply cut off a plant, put it somewhere else, and
Yeah.
it's doing just fine.
I would actually love to talk about two things from what you just mentioned. First is that herbs are oftentimes, I find, some of the best pollinators in the garden. I have a African blue basil. That thing is like a flower factory, and it's like an electric with with bees. So it's like
Yeah.
insane when you get near it. And my marjoram and my thyme and basil, when all of these things flower, cilantro, dill, they attract so
Ugh,
many pollinators
yes.
to the garden.
Yeah.
Different pollinators, hoverflies,
Yep.
like butterflies, bees, native bees, like everything and anything in between. So I highly encourage people. Oftentimes they feel bad when things go to flower. Like at that point, like first of all, the second thing I want to talk about is eating the herbs and using them once they have gone to flower. Um, but I do actually love to let these things go to flower just to see the activity that they bring in. And then the other thing that I want to really ask you about, if you have anything on that, go for it. But the do you use the herbs after they flowered? Like how?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Like something like thyme.
I think that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never noticed like a difference in how flavorful the herb is post flowering, right? And I think it makes a really awesome presentation in things like I infuse a lot of herbs and olive oil, like to cook other vegetables with, or just to have like as a
Mm.
bread dipping thing with like, balsamic or whatever. Having those flowering herbs inside of your olive oil does two things. One, it really absorbs the oil really quickly, so it keeps everything towards the bottom of your jar because once those herbs float to the top and get exposed to oxygen, they're going to mold and stuff. But the flowers actually weigh it down more, which I love. But it looks really pretty too. So if you have the clear bottle that you have all of these like flowering herbs in, it's just really beautiful to look at. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is you can 100% use all of those things when they go to flower. They taste pretty much the same, if not better. So,
Yeah, I've always thought that was like a weird. I don't know if I want to even call it a myth or like just almost misinformation on some level. But a lot of people are always like, I always hear like, oh, once it goes to flower, like it's not as good or it's bitter, and I'm like, I just don't like. I don't know if
eating
like I
herbs.
feel like my taste buds are pretty good,
Yeah.
and I've
No, I
never
mean,
been
I get
like,
that with
oh,
broccoli. I
this is
get it
so
with
gross.
broccoli. Yeah. But I mean, herbs?
Yeah,
No. But I get it with other
yeah,
vegetable-y type things.
yeah.
But
I think like basil maybe at the most, like it'll be like a little bit more bitter, but
except for
honestly,
holy
it still tastes a
basil.
lot like basil.
Holy
Not the holy basil.
basil's,
Holy basil is
yeah,
legit.
that's just awesome all the time. Anyway,
Yeah,
anyway, you
all
get
the
it.
time. But actually, I'd love to hear about this olive oil situation
Mm.
because I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit intimidated by that. You see
Oh,
like these bottles of olive
oh.
oil that are infused, and you're like, oh, I don't know, like there's probably some like food safety thing. Like we're not going to claim that this is 100% food safe or anything, but like what's the basics? Like, is it literally just I open a bottle of oil, put it in? Like, do you heat it? Do you do anything like that?
This is such a fun project because one, it lets you have like the taste of those herbs all year long because you're putting them in
Hmm.
oil and vinegar. So I'll use both of those. So infusing
Oh
vinegar,
yeah.
herbs with vinegar, herbs with olive oil or avocado oil or whatever, sunflower oil, whatever oil you want to cook with. I think olive oil is kind of more the go-to because it's just so common for us to cook with it. But avocado oil
Totally.
does an amazing job, and the avocado oil doesn't have a taste to it itself, so it really tastes like the herbs that
Oh.
you're putting in. So as far as like the safety part of it, I have peeled like 4 or 5 cloves of garlic and put them down in there with like thyme. I don't usually put basil in there for a couple of reasons. One, basil just to me doesn't hold the. It's just so much a watery plant. It's just much more watery of a plant, so I just don't use it
Yeah,
and
I
things
could see
like that.
that.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying I don't. I don't do it.
I feel like it'd look kind of weird and mushy at some
Yeah, it looks
point.
kind of looks kind of mushy. And
Yeah.
typically, I in my oils, I don't care whether they're dry or they're fresh. Like you have that
Okay.
option. And with your vinegar, you can do either. I'm usually a big fan of drying everything because I just feel like mold is an issue. We live in a humid environment. You just got to be careful.
Mm.
But as long as you have those herbs completely submerged all the time. So if you use your bottle of oil with the herbs in it, top it back off. Just make sure
I
they are
see.
always staying at the bottom. I know that some people put like those weights, those glass weights on top of some of their like vinegars or oils to keep those
Yeah,
kinds of
I've
things
seen that.
down. I don't do that. I just kind of keep topping it off, so there's always this kind of flow going. But
Okay.
I literally would have like 4 bottles of different infused herbs and vinegars going in this house. It's like it's at all times. I don't even know if we have regular olive oil or oils anymore that aren't infused with. So,
I'm honestly like now I'm a little bit mad at myself. I'm like, why haven't I done this? Like,
but you still can. You
this
still
is
have
so
stuff
crazy.
growing,
I know.
so
I'm
you
I'm
can
gonna
just
do
go
it.
do. Yeah. Yep.
I'm like I might literally go do it after we're done,
Excellent.
because like I love like I've bought those before and I'm like, why haven't I made it? Like it's
Oh,
crazy.
and
I don't know
add
why I never
some
thought about this.
garlic cloves, like peeled garlic cloves in there.
Yeah.
Oh, and then like just kind of like slice it like a tiny bit, just so it kind of
Okay.
like oozes the oils. And ooh, that's kind of a gross word, but yeah, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And like and in the end it's like if you are even like a little bit worried, you could just keep it in the fridge. I'm sure that'll make it even safer. And then also the other thing I was wondering, I was like, at some point you could just let it sit for a while, like fully submerged, and then decant it off and just use it like
Oh
that,
yeah,
right?
you could. Yep, you 100%
Instead
could. I
of
mean,
like
like
doing
yeah,
that.
just
Yeah.
like any other oil infusion, you could just take all
Hmm.
the organics off out, and then you'd be like good
Yeah.
to go. Yeah, that's kind of funny because I infuse oils with herbs all the time for like just oil like body oils or facial oils or whatever, and I've
Yeah.
never thought about the ones I cook with to then go take the organics out. But yeah, 100%
Okay.
good.
Cool. So that's a new one. Like I'm definitely adding into my rotation. The
Yeah.
other thing I was curious about, like, is there any other preparations that, because you do a lot of the preservation, right? So you'll do the drying, you'll do the oils. Is there anything else you like to prepare or like do with your herbs, like both as a preservation or even as a use case?
Yeah, I mean, the herbs are awesome to make like if you drink tea or if you make cocktails. Any kind of simple syrup infused with herbs has been like 2 years ago. I got into this whole big kick about just what these taste combinations would be like with like thyme and oregano, sage, like whatever herb is out there, and make simple syrups out of
Yeah.
them. And it's kind of interesting because you've got that sweet savory kind of combo going, but it's great in tea. Like if you have a chamomile tea and you put like a thyme syrup in it, it is awesome. Thyme and oregano, but thyme specifically, I think is great in anything that you bake. So like if you make
Hmm.
sugar cookies, for instance, and you want to use, instead of the sugar, you want to use a simple syrup that has been infused with thyme, that is like a totally different thing. I do a lot of it with shortbread
Whoa.
with that. It's just it's just yummy to do. Like it's just
Yeah.
experimenting with these different kinds of simple syrups. Um,
That's cool.
what else do I do? I mean, like, herbs are so versatile. Like you could probably do just about anything that you would think of to use in any circumstance and put an herb in there instead. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say I'm pretty sure it was your suggestion for a video, or no, we did this for some other random project in the past, but we had to make this lavender simple syrup. And so we made it, and then I tried it. I was like, oh, like this is
Yeah.
really good. And then I went home and I put it in my coffee, and that was really good.
Oh
That was
yeah.
super interesting. And again, this is another one of these things where I'm like, why the heck didn't I just think to do more of this? Like a simple syrup is just like you take one like cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, put it in a pot, heat it up to dissolve it, and then you just put your herbs in there to
Yeah.
infuse.
Yeah.
And like whenever you're happy with it, you're done.
Yep.
And now you've got like a delicious syrup. And also now you mentioned like the desserts and stuff, which I never would have thought of. I'm like, you could do like an olive oil cake, but you could use like an infused oil
Oh
as like your base for
yeah.
that. And that would be
Yes.
super good too.
Yeah. The other thing I did that I think is cool to do with herbs is like smoked salts. Like just, if you have a
Oh,
smoker or any type of thing like even a
yeah.
grill would probably work if you had a wood chip burning in there. But if you
Hmm.
just smoked your herbs with your salt so that you can use them in marinades or just to sprinkle on top of cooked meats or vegetables or things like that, that's a great way to use them up. And even like infusing herbs in sugar in general, just infusing them in sugar, infusing them in
Oh,
salt,
yeah.
just keeping it in the container. And if you keep it in there for like 4 to 6 weeks or so and like shake it up every so often, it'll absorb the taste of whatever herb you put in there.
Oh, I think I've seen that. So like to describe the process, like how would you make like a lavender sugar, like roughly?
So
Like, do you have to get
lavender
exact?
sugar is like a mainstay. So you would just take any
Okay.
kind of sugar that you would want, and then you just take your dried lavender. I do leaves, the stem, the bud, and all. Just kind of cut them up, and
Okay.
keep it in a jar, like a mason jar. And I'll just keep pretty like I'll just shake it like every so often, like every time I walk by it. But I'll leave those pieces in there because the pieces of lavender don't bother me when I cook. But if they bother you, you can sift them out. But
Mhm.
I just leave them in there. They're not gonna hurt anybody.
Wow. So it's just literally by being in contact with the sugar or salt, like
Yeah.
those aromatics are kind of exchanging.
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It's
Wow, there's so
crazy
many different easy ways to do this.
how much taste you get out of it. Like it's literally
Yeah.
lavender sugar. Like it's just it's really wild.
Wow. I think like you're opening up a door in my mind right now of how simple a lot of these different like herbal things are to actually do, and like there's so many different unique ideas on how you could use them. Because
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the herbs are, if I had to tell somebody if I could only grow a single class of plants, it would be hands down herbs,
Yeah.
regardless of where I lived. If I could only choose one thing, I'd even throw away the tomatoes if I had to and just grow
Oh.
herbs.
Oh,
Because, no,
really?
seriously, because if I could buy, like, if you have herbs in your garden, it's entirely changed how we cook. Like, when we first set up our garden, we built the herb bed, and the freedom, like before having the garden, we use like herbs but like dry herbs, and it's kind of like whatever, like I'll sprinkle a little of this cardboard oregano in the sauce and like it'll smell like something. But it's like, no, seriously, it's like now it's like I go outside and I always bring in too many herbs, and Katrina, my partner, she's like, why do I need this much? I'm like, they just
There's
smelled
no
so
such
good when
thing
I
as
was
too much.
harvesting it. I was like, I just like got into it. But it's entirely changes the way you cook, because you never, like, I don't know about you, but I've never bought like those little clamshells at the grocery store because I feel so dirty. It's like $6 for like a couple sprigs of thyme. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just rather not have it. And having the garden and going outside and just being able to grab like, oh, you know what? Today I'm gonna do like German thyme for fun, and is it any different from my French thyme? And I could get
Yeah.
as much as I want, and it's no big deal. And I could just throw them into soups. And we use herbs so much now, like on
That's
an
awesome.
order of magnitude more than what we ever did before. And it's fine. It's cheap. It's like free basically. A lot of these herbs will just grow once you put them in the ground, and it really will unlock your time in the kitchen, what you create, and I think it's just the best in terms of like having to choose a single thing, because you could still get ingredients and elevate them with herbs, but getting good
Yeah.
herbs can be hard, and if you do find them, they're going to be expensive, and then
Yeah.
they'll go bad in your fridge within like a couple of days of you
Oh
buying them,
yeah.
and you
No, they're
feel terrible.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gross. No, I mean, like, I
So
think that's a really good. I totally agree with you. If I couldn't grow anything, or if I had to choose some genre of plant to grow, that would be it. Like, I would
yeah,
definitely just, yeah, yeah,
yeah. And then I wanted to ask you a little bit about this. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give any advice about medical stuff, but I do actually like to go out into the garden and I'll harvest some things on the most basic level. Things like chamomile, I would make chamomile tea, and it's like nice and relaxing. And things like mint, I'll do if I have like a upset stomach, and I'll have like that as a tea, and that's really nice. Do you ever go like, is tea kind of like the main way that you approach herbs for like historical use, like in the past, like?
I wouldn't say Maine. I think that
Okay.
I mean, I was super lucky. I grew up in a like a very Ayurvedic household, so tea and we're
Hmm.
Indian, so tea is like a big part of this culture. And my mother would do, whatever ailment you had, she would be like, "All right, hang on, I've got a ginger something else remedy for
Yeah.
that." So tea is definitely like 100% something that I gather herbs to do. Um, I make a tea pretty much every night. Like we do it on over ice, like for with dinner. But I will do it like I'll pick things out that I have dried based on what the mood is in the household, right? Like so, lemon verbena is definitely always in there. Lemon balm is in there. Mint is in there. Butterfly pea flower. Those are like my definite go tos to have as like a
Cool.
base for tea. And then you'll add in things like chamomile and things like that. But I am a huge oil infuser for like I try not to buy any like facial serums. I make all that stuff on my own, and it's
Oh, cool.
because those things are so readily available when you grow them that infusing them in oil is just a very easy thing to do. So, you just pick a carrier oil that's suited for your skin, and I won't dive into that whole rabbit hole, but
Yeah,
so many
I wouldn't
different
know it.
kinds. The sunflower, the grapeseed, those and the sweet almond, those are like my top three. You put some dried herbs in there, and you infuse it for like a
Okay.
month, and you have a really nice, very non-toxic, clean product to use on your skin or your hair or whatever. And rosemary, like that's one of the easiest. I always tell people if they wanted to get into infusing oils, rosemary is one of the easiest ones to do, and one of the ones that it's pretty versatile. Like you can use it in your
Cool.
hair and on your skin. It's a simple. It's simple. You infuse it. You take a cheesecloth or a sieve and you take out all the
Hmm.
organics when that month is done, and then something's ready to use. So infusing them, I cook with them, and tea definitely is a big one.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one of the things that I do want to like kind of dabble a little bit more into just for fun. But I think I will be starting with those deliciousness, like the infused herbal oils, the infused salts, the infused sugars. That all sounds like very approachable for me. Right off the bat, I could just do it very easily. And also, I love the fact that I could already like envision exactly how I want to use them. Whereas like
Ooh,
other things, it's like I have to have like more of like a certain thing that I'm looking for. But with these guys, it's like it's gonna be just like a fun thing next to my kitchen stove that I'm gonna be reaching for. Absolutely. The and for the tea stuff like that, generally it's best if you do the drying as we just discussed at the beginning, right? Basically, preserve your herbs whatever you want, and then you could kind of split them out and just brew them however you please. And generally, not to get into like the minutia of making tea, but that's always for me with herbal teas. I do like as hot water as I could get, and I let it steep for a pretty long time. Is that generally safe for most
yeah. I mean,
herbs,
like I
or is
know
it?
that
It's
there
all
are like
variable.
rules about like
Yeah,
what leaf of tea it is, and we're basically they're not tea,
yeah,
right? They're like tisanes because we're not it's not tea leaves,
sure.
we're not using camellia plants. But that I'm with you. I think you steep it for whatever you want it to taste like, but I know there are like rules, right? 212, and you steep it for like 3.5 minutes. I'm just making it easier on yourself. Just
Okay.
do what you want, whatever,
Yeah,
however you want to do it. But you want that water at least to that like 200-degree mark to
to
get
boil.
whatever
Yeah.
you want to out of your herbs.
Okay. Very cool. Well, this was like super fascinating for me because I think it's there's just so much more to do with herbs than I always give them credit for. I already love them. They're really one of my favorite things to grow. I already mentioned, but you've just opened up like this whole new world of how I want to like deal with that. My abundance, like if I do have an abundance, like I am going to try actually drying some this year to save because even though we get herbs for a lot of the year, there's those periods where if I have to reach for that dry oregano, I'm like super sad. So if it's from the store. So I will be drying my
Okay.
own herbs. I will be making my own oils, and I will be messing with the sugars and the syrups. And
Ooh, I'm
if I
excited.
don't, yeah, if I don't, I want you guys to come at me
I'll come at
and be
you
like, "Where
because
it
I want
is?
to
Where
know
is
what
it?"
you make because you love to cook, right? Like you actually love to
Yes.
cook. So yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
very curious to hear what you make. And yeah, I mean, like making your own spice rack, basically, like when you're drying your own, it
That's a
is
flex.
so vastly different than what you can buy at the store, right? But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that's just a more fun way to do it. But I'll definitely bug you about it. What have you cooked? What have you
Okay.
made? Have you done this? Because yeah, I mean, just to see what recipes you come up with too, because
Everything
I
is
think that'd be
potatoes.
cool. Ah, okay.
Just all roasted potatoes with different herb oils.
That's good. That's actually
But
pretty good. Oh, and then you can do like compound butters too, like with the herbs, right? Like you get the
oh my
butter,
gosh.
you put
Okay.
the herbs and I
Yeah.
love compound butter. So
All right.
that's
Before I
oh,
send you off, let's hit him with the compound butter,
okay.
real quick. Like,
Easy to
how?
do.
What's your process?
I use like a good high quality Irish butter, so you can use like Kerrygold, but just use something that's like high quality. Let it come to room temperature. We'll put it on a piece of parchment paper or wax paper, but parchment paper basically. Put that little glob of your butter there. Take your dried herbs, like whatever you want, and even and edible flowers, like they just make a beautiful presentation. But you can put herbs in there. You can actually mix it into your butter first and then put that blob down, but use that parchment paper to roll it up and, push the sides and like mold it so your hands aren't melting the butter as you're rolling this thing,
Right.
and then freeze it. And then you can freeze it. And then whenever you need to use it, you just slice off the little disc and you can cook with it. And it's awesome. I mean, it's just, that is like easy stuff to do and a great way to use up a lot of herbs.
That's awesome. That's another one that I always forget about. I don't know why. Because like whenever you see it at a restaurant, like, ooh,
Oh
compound
yeah, that's
butter, I'll
fancy.
have that. Yeah, but it's like it's really just butter that you've chopped up a bunch of
Yeah.
herbs to, and then refroze into a shape, and now you're using it. So it's like
Yep.
totally something anyone at home can do and experiment with, like your own custom herb butters and stuff. And also,
Yeah.
I'll quickly mention everything we've mentioned, these like homemade things, people would love to receive as gifts as well. So you
Oh
could share
yeah.
your
Oh
garden
my
with your
gosh.
friends and be like, hey, like I grew this thyme and I made you this like thyme oil or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
like everyone's going to appreciate that and love it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, and then like
thank
it,
you
like you put
for
an oil
yeah.
and a vinegar together. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's a
the
good gift.
vinegars. Come on, who's gonna be mad
Yeah.
at that? Nobody. Especially if you brought
Nobody.
them your own like
Nobody.
little homemade bread, or maybe they should supply the bread since you
Oh,
brought all that.
yeah. It's a gift.
Well, it's super fun chatting with you, Anna, like always, and hoping to have more conversation with you and see more of you in the future. But thanks for coming on. This was a blast.
Yeah. This is super fun. Thanks for having me.